Hello and welcome to this quick webinar introducing NRG Cloud. My name is Leon Hailstones. I'm the Director of Product Management at NRG Systems. Today we're going to quickly look at who NRG Systems is. We're going to look at what the NRG Cloud is all about. We're going to do a walkthrough of the cloud and some of the services around the cloud. And then I'm going to wrap this up by talking through some of the subscription tiers and options you have in terms of subscribing to or connecting sites to NRG Cloud. NRG Systems was founded in 1982, and we're a designer and manufacturer of smart technologies for a more sustainable planet. We're based in Heinsberg, Vermont, and have a global sales and service network. We're part of the ESCO Technologies Utility Solutions Group. NRG has shipped products to all 7 continents and over 170 countries, serving renewable energy developers, turbine manufacturers, consultants, utilities, research institutes, and government agencies around the world. NRG Systems offers a wide range of technologies that serve the wind resource and project energy assessment space. We work in wind plant optimization, solar resource monitoring, solar resource assessment, atmospheric solutions, and wildlife protection. If you are not familiar with NRG's products or services, I welcome you to visit our website and reach out to us if you'd like to have a discussion about any of our listed products. So what is NRG Cloud all about? NRG Cloud is the start of a platform for monitoring NRG Systems products. The first version of the cloud was really designed to support our Symphony Pro data loggers, and the focus of the project or the initiative is to port the functionality that we have in our Symphony Pro desktop software into the cloud and make it accessible from any web-enabled or web-connected browser. What we can see on this slide is how NRG Cloud makes accessing your Symphony Pro data as easy as possible. So you have your different instruments out in the field connected to a Symphony Pro data logger. The data logger sends data through to our cloud, at the moment via email. From there, the data is stored. It's stored in a Microsoft Azure environment, and we then render or make that data available through a very user-friendly web interface, or alternatively, we've made API endpoints available, allowing you to programmatically query the NRG Cloud servers for data that you have stored there. A question, how do you get to NRG Cloud? Very simple, very intuitive. Literally just go to cloud.nrgsystems.com, and this will take you to the login page. I'll also show you how to access it through our NRG Systems web page in a second. Core functionality of the cloud. So the first release of the cloud is again very specifically focused on the Symphony Pro data logger. And we released a number of features which will be built on over time. So what you see on the slide is the functionality or the feature set that we have available at the moment. We'll be adding more to this. The features that we have available at the moment include fleet management. So you're able to monitor not only one, but a number of wind or solar sites. 0 to 5 sites is free of charge. So you can go and add a couple sites onto NRG Cloud and use the platform or test it for a small number of sites for free. If you want to add more than 5 sites, though, we have subscription models based on the number of sites you're adding. NRG Cloud was also designed to support multi-user access to different sites, and we currently support 3 different user roles. So we have admin access, coordinator access, and basic user access. Now, as you can see on the slide, depending on which user access level you would have different permissions and would be able to do different things on the NRG Cloud application. So an administrator would be able to view site data, change settings on the site, delete a site, and add users. A coordinator would be able to view site data and change settings, but they would not be able to delete the site, for example, or add more users. A basic user would be restricted to only viewing site data. NRG Cloud also has built-in data management tools to make it easier to work with the data that you're collecting from your loggers. 2 of the graphical user interface based tools would be a bulk data import, allowing you to grab a couple hundred or even a couple thousand files off of your local machine and bulk upload them to the cloud. Then we also have a bulk data export tool. And what this allows you to do is to select a site, pick a site, select the data you'd like to export, and export it either in the raw RLD file format or export it as text or other file formats. And then I've mentioned the APIs already, but again, as part of the data management suite, we have API access, and we currently support 2 APIs, namely a data export API, where you can query the API for a specific range or data set. And then there's a data conversion API where you can upload an RLD and it will return a converted file or return a text file. The next thing that's built into the NRG Cloud platform is site monitoring, history, and events tracking. So we have a whole suite of visual tools to help you keep track of how your sites are doing. The first one is your site summary visualizations. We'll take a bit of a look at we'll take a closer look at those when we go through the walkthrough. Then there's a site timeline with sensor history, events, faults, and warnings, and alerts in the application. The team is currently working on email and SMS notifications, so that will be released soon, and that will then allow you to be notified via email if certain events are triggered, either at the logger or at the cloud level. And then another feature that we've just released into the cloud is remote device configuration. More specifically, we've introduced basic channel configuration. So you can now change channel settings from NRG Cloud directly. You do not need a static IP-based connection to your logger, which is really convenient. I'll take you through how to do that later on in this webinar. The final thing I just want to point out before we jump into the actual walkthrough is that NRG Cloud comes with 2 demo sites built in, so to speak. So when you log in for the first time, you'll notice that you have access to a wind and solar demo site. This was set up to allow users to test the functionality of the cloud and see what kind of functionality they would have available to them when they connect their real sites. So let's look at the NRG Cloud walkthrough. The first thing, before we actually jump over to the web browser and look at the actual web application, the first thing I want to just point out here is how you actually get your data logger connected to NRG Cloud. Your data logger won't push data to the cloud unless the cloud has that site set up. On Symfony Pro Desktop, you need to make sure that your logger is connected. Then navigate through to your schedules page. And then there are 2 things that you need to do there. On the schedules page, the first thing you need to do is ensure the logger setting enable diagnostic check-in is enabled, right? And that's going to be important if you want to do remote channel config and so on. And then the second thing you want to do there is add NRG Cloud's email address. So that's cloud@nrgsystems.com to one of the email fields. And then save all those settings to the logger. And your logger should be pushing data through to the cloud. Okay, now let's switch over to the browser and we're going to do a quick walkthrough. To get to NRG Cloud, you'll go from apps through to the actual NRG Cloud. So it'll take you to the NRG Cloud page. If you scroll down, you have a link there to log in or sign up. So if you when you click on that, it takes you to NRG Cloud and you can now sign in. If you haven't registered for an account, the first thing you'd have to do is to sign up for a new account. You just click on the sign up option there and enter all your details, agree to the terms of service, and you'll then sign up, follow the email prompts, and from there you'd be able to log in. So when you log in for the first time, let's just give it a second to load. When you log in for the first time, you'll notice, as I mentioned earlier, the 2 demo sites. This is a site that I've added myself, so that wouldn't show up on your login. To start off this section of today's presentation, let's just look at the general layout of the web application first, and then we'll dive into a couple basic features and look at those more closely. So the first thing I want to point out is we're currently on the fleet view. In the fleet view, you've got the map view showing you where your sites are positioned on a map. If you click on any one of the sites in this site list over here, it will drill down or zoom into your specific or particular site. If you wanted to filter your view to only see sites with active alerts, you can do that with this drop-down menu at the top here. So let's just go back to all sites. And then if you wanted to add a new site, you would do that with this plus button. We'll take a look at that in a second. And then just in more general terms, the layout, so we have access to our sites list or table view here. So if you go there, you get a table view of all your sites. Most of the tables in this web application, and I'm going to point this out now so we don't have to say it over and over, are searchable. So you can search for specific data or keywords in a table. You can click on any one of the column headers and you'd be able to type in a search or enter a search for that column specifically. You can sort the column or sort by the column values. And in most cases, and I'll show you this in our events page, you're able to export the data. If the data in the table is date range bound or date range specific, you would set the start and end dates in that window. So just to go back to the sites page. So on the sites page, you've got a list of all the sites that you have connected to your account. The events tab here shows us all events across all of your sites in a table view. You can export this, as I mentioned, but in different formats depending on what you want to do with the data. So if you want to go and analyze it somewhere else, you may want to have it in a CSV or an Excel format. If you just want to share it with a colleague or just look at it in a document, maybe PDF is more convenient. Right, then at the top here, you've got a global search. So again, keyword, and it will search across all sites. You also have a notifications widget giving you direct access to your most recent notifications. You can scroll through these. You can click on any one and it will navigate you through to the site from which the notification was triggered. You have the option to dismiss all notifications if you'd like to. Then you have the data management suite, which I mentioned earlier. So under data management, we have the ability to do bulk data uploads or imports, bulk data downloads or exports, and we have access to our API credentials and so on. Finally, you have access to your user profile section. So I want to point something out here quickly. If you go into your user profile page, yes, you can change your email address, your password, and your site or your user-specific information. If you scroll down, this is where you also have the option to either hide or show demo sites. So if you, for whatever reason, want to remove the demo sites from your account, we don't allow users to delete them, but you can hide them and they'll no longer show up. So let's navigate back to our fleet view and let's talk through adding a new site. So to do that, we click on the Add New Site button at the bottom. The first step is to select a site type. What this selection drives is the way your data is visualized in your site summary screen. So if you select a wind site, you'll have wind-specific widgets. If you select a solar site, you'll have solar-specific widgets in that page. I'll show you later on, but you can also change it. So after a site setup, you can go in and change the site type if you feel, for whatever reason, that you want to toggle from one to the other, and it will very quickly visualize your data in the new widgets. So let's just, for this exercise, select wind. Once we've selected wind, we go next. And we have this really neat feature here where what we can now do is grab an RLD file from the logger that we want to connect. Drop the file onto the screen here, and it will automatically pull the site configuration information for us. To illustrate this, I've just opened up my Finder and navigated to a folder where I have a whole lot of the RLD files saved for the other site that I have connected to my profile. I'm going to grab this and just drag it over here. As you can see, if we drop that there, just go back into full screen mode. Now it's selected that RLD, and we click next. And you'll notice it's automatically pulled the site number, the logger serial number, the site name, site project, commissioning date, location, and so on. And of course here, if you have a data encryption password or logger access pin set up for your site, you'd probably want to enter those. I just want to go back and show you, well, maybe before I do that, if I now hit create, it would set up that site for me and add it to my account. So let's just go back here and assume I didn't have an RLD file. So I didn't have all that information pre-populated, but I wanted to set up the site anyway so we could connect it later and start pushing data through. And I need to manually enter all the information. So to do that, all I would do is, instead of dropping in a config or an RLD file there to drive the config, I would just click next. And this would give me a blank site or add new site form. And we could do the same kind of thing. You could add a number, site number. You could add your logger serial number, commissioning date, and you would add your data encryption password and logger access pin. And when you hit create, that site would also be created and show up on your map. Okay, I'm not actually going to create a site because we've already done that. And we have that site up here. So let's say we've created our site and we have a whole lot of historic data, RLD files that we want to upload. So what we're going to do is, you've now got your site set up. We're going to go over here to my data import tool. And you can see we've again got this option or region into which we can drop files. So let's minimize this again, pull up our Finder, and let's just select a couple files here. And you can select quite a large number of files at the same time. And I drag them across, and you can see it's automatically queued them for uploading, right? And when I now say upload data, I've already uploaded this data before, so it's going to confirm that for me. But you can see it now essentially runs an upload manager to get the data uploaded to NRG Cloud for you. So if we go back to our fleet view, let's navigate through to the site we've created and for which we've uploaded data. If we have a look at this site, there are a couple of things we can see over here. So first off, the site is set up as a wind specific site. So you can see you've got wind speed, wind direction, we have a windrows, we have the IPAC or the battery voltages, and we have a set of plots for all the other instruments connected to the data logger. You have your project commission date. It's important to set that up. You have the location of your site, and this is fairly important. You have your data range, so you have when data is available for, so the start date where we first have data for the site, and then the end date, the most recent or the last uploaded data. And then during or over that period, we have this field here that shows us what our available data percentage is. So if it were 100%, it would mean we had data for all data points within that window of time. At 89%, that's probably not all that bad. We have almost complete data. You'll also notice, based on this, we're not looking at today's date over here. We're looking at the end date. So NRG Cloud will automatically align the window that it visualizes for you with when you last have data for the site that you're looking at. And this is especially useful if you're dealing with sites that you may have decommissioned a while back, but you still have the data stored, or you just uploaded historic data. So that window of time will never be current. If you wanted to change, site settings. So let's say we wanted to change this from a wind site to a solar site, as I mentioned we could do earlier. We click on that little gear icon, and that gives us access to our site configuration. Site configuration, the first option you have there is to change the site type. So I just want to show you, if we change it to solar, we save that. We go back here, and you'll immediately notice we have irradiance plots that don't have data in them, but we have irradiance plots there. We've got the wind direction, and if we had pyranometers connected to the data logger, these would have been populated, but because we didn't, you just have blank widgets over there. So let me quickly change this back. and just save this. I quickly want to show you some of the functionality of some of these widgets. First thing to point out here is you can isolate channels or focus in on specific channels by deactivating other channels simply by clicking on their names or the channel name. Next thing is we can zoom in just by dragging, so selecting a window or a specific range of data and just focus in on that. We can reset the view to zoom back out, and we can very easily add our channel data back in. We can also view a chart in full screen. Of course, you've got the option to print it or export it into a number of different formats, and then including the data as a CSV or an Excel file, XLS file, and then you also have the option to view a data table. So if you wanted to try and understand what the specific value of a particular channel's data was at a particular point in time, you can do that by looking at this view. Then the other thing you can do here is you could change the date range for the entire set of data that you're looking at. Right, let's quickly look at a couple other things here. The first one is to switch sites. You don't have to go all the way back to your fleet or your sites table view. You can just access the drop-down menu over here and switch between different sites. For every site, you would typically have access to a couple different screens or features. So the first thing there is you have access to your site summary, right, which is what we're looking at or have looked at. You have access to system health, events, so that's site-specific events, channels, timeline, and users. Okay, so let's take a quick look at system health. System health will show you some of the key notifications that may be relevant to your site. So for the site we're looking at here, we've got a lost connection warning. And what it's telling us is that there has been no diagnostic check-in for the site logger since the site was set up. So what it's recommending we do is go and confirm the system configuration and make sure that the logger does a diagnostic check-in. As I mentioned earlier in the call, enabling diagnostic check-in is important to be able to remotely configure channels. So if you want to do any form of remote configuration, you need that diagnostic check-in enabled, and you probably don't want to be seeing warnings or alerts like this one. If we look at events, so the events that we have here are site-specific. So it's telling us that on the 12th, which is a long time ago, but there was an event notifying us that Logger UI was in use, or someone had accessed the Logger UI, and it's recommending that we confirm that we expected a site visit and that there's no tampering going on there. Confirm the system configuration, monitor the site, and download the event logs just to make sure no one's tampered or changed anything they shouldn't have. The next one we have on here is our channel screen. So here you start off with a summary stats table where you can see what channels are configured, what instruments they have connected, how they're set up. And if we want to drill into how a specific channel is configured, we simply click on it. This brings us through to our channel configuration page. On the configuration page, we can both read or see what the configuration is and make changes to how the channel is configured. So if we wanted to change the height at which this instrument is installed, we could make the adjustments here. And when we hit save, it will queue those changes for when the logger does its next diagnostic check-in. And those changes will then be pushed through to the logger, implemented, and we will get a notification confirming that the changes have successfully been made. The next page we want to look at is the timeline, which is a site-specific timeline view showing you when you have files available, events available, etc. You can filter the view to look at only specific information. So for example, if we only wanted to look at events, communication, and channels, we could do that. And if we wanted to, for example, zoom in to a particular date range, we can look at that and we can go and see, okay, well, we have events here that have their ID. We have events that were triggered at particular points within this window of time. We click on that event, it will give us the event name, event ID, and when exactly it was triggered. The next page we want to look at here is the users page. On the users page, which is site specific, you get to add and remove users from your site. To add a user, you simply use the add user button over there. You enter their email address, you select the role you'd like to give them, and when you hit save, that will send them an email inviting them or giving them access to this site. To remove a user, and I'm not going to remove myself, seeing that I'm the only user on the site, but assuming there were a list of users, all I would do is hit remove, and that would take me through the steps to remove a user from a site. Right. Next, let's take a look at data management. So we've already looked at data import and how to bulk import, but let's say we wanted to export data from a site. First thing we'd want to do is go and start a new data export, then select the site. So we know this is the site we've been looking at, NRG 34 meter tower, number 1. So we select the site and we select the date range. So let's go back to May. And let's just select 2 days over there. Select the date range and select the file format. So you can select text, RLD. If you've selected text, you can upload an NEC file to customize the layout. You can select the data type that you'd like to export. So whether you want measurements, events, communications, diagnostics. I'm just going to go with measurements and hit begin export. So I get the message that my data has been exported successfully. And you'll notice that it's added this export to my data export queue. So when this data export is completed, I'll get a notification telling me that it's complete and I'll be able to download the file. While we wait for that, let's quickly take a look at our API functionality. So if we go to our API setup, here you'll see we've got access to our client ID and your client secret. And you'll use these two to access your APIs or pull data from NRG Cloud via API access. For documentation on our APIs, you can access the API developer portal. And there's a whole lot of information on here on how to use it. I also wanted to point out that on GitHub, let's just open that up. On GitHub, we have our NRG Pi repository. And in this repository, you'll notice that there's actually an example Jupyter notebook that our team has put together, taking you step by step through how to work with the NRG Cloud APIs and pull data from your sites. If you have any questions on using our APIs, please feel free to reach out to our team and we'd be happy to discuss them with you. Okay, so let's go back to the cloud and you'll notice that we've got a little notification over there. So I'm assuming our data export is done. So if we go to our export, we can see that it's completed. And if we click on the download button over there, you'll notice that we've created a new text file. Let's just open this up with all the site data that we exported. So that brings us to the end of the walkthrough. Let's switch back to our presentation for a minute. This is where we left off. So from here, final thing I quickly want to talk to you all about is our NRG Cloud subscription options. We've essentially broken down our subscriptions into different packages based on the number of sites that you'd like to have connected. So I pointed out earlier that 0 to 5 sites is free of charge. You can set those up, you can work with them, you can access the different features and tools that I've shown you in this demo today. But then if you want to add more sites, we recommend selecting one of the subscription options from this list and getting the NRG sales team to help you get that subscription activated. And once you have that activated, you'll be able to add all your sites. We thank you all for attending today's webinar. We appreciate everyone's time. If you have any questions, please reach out to me or our team, and we'd be happy to have further discussions with all of you. Thank you, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the day.